This is a revision video for AQA English Literature GCSE using the relationships cluster, and this poem is by Simon Armitage and it's called The Manhunt. After the first phase, after passionate nights and intimate days, only then would he let me trace the frozen river which ran through his face. Only then would he let me explore the blown hinge of his lower jaw, and handle and hold the damaged porcelain collarbone, and mind and attend the fractured rudder of shoulder blade, and finger and thumb the parachute silk of his punctured lung. Only then could I bind the struts and climb the rungs of his broken ribs, and feel the hurt of his grazed heart. Skirting along, only then could I picture the scan, the fetus of metal beneath his chest, where the bullet had finally come to rest. Then I widened the search, traced the scarring back to its source, to a sweating, unexploded mine buried deep in his mind, around which every nerve in his body had tightened and closed. Then, and only then, did I come close. So the poem firstly is about a wounded soldier who returns from war. The physical scars are visible and traceable, but the mental scars are more difficult to find. It's told from the perspective of the wife of a soldier, and is sometimes subtitled Laura's Poem. It was first broadcast as part of a Channel 4 documentary, Forgotten Heroes, They're Not Dead, and in the film, the Manhunt is read by Laura, who is the wife of Eddie Beddoes, and he served as a peacekeeper in Bosnia in the 1990s before being discharged due to injury and depression. If we think about the title first of all, then there's lots of ideas that you can draw from the idea of a manhunt. So first of all, it could be a childhood game, could be looking for something that has been lost. Connotations of the word hunt could be danger, a purposeful searching for something. And a manhunt can often be used to describe criminals that the police and authorities are searching for. The fact that it is the manhunt rather than a manhunt is significant because it emphasises the importance of this particular manhunt. So the first two stanzas then. The first two lines, after the first phase, after passionate nights and intimate days, this could almost be a traditional love poem, suggesting that they're enjoying spending time together as a couple. He's just come back from the war, he's been away for a long time, and they're enjoying getting to know each other again. And it takes time before he allows her near to him to actually start to understand the things that he's gone through. She is very, very gentle in her approach and very tender. She's just tracing something, so very delicately touching it, and always approaching him with care and being very gentle. The technique anaphora is used, and this is used throughout the poem with the repetition of only then. So anaphora refers to repetition when it's repeated at the beginning of lines, and it can be phrases rather than just words. And it emphasises, in this case, the slow process of the healing. Only suggests that you haven't got very much, it suggests there's a small amount. And this is a very, very slow healing process for the woman to draw out of her husband. The frozen river is an interesting metaphor. It could suggest tears. Alternatively, it could be a scar, so a physical battle wound. If it is a scar, then it shows he has had time to heal physically from his injuries, and perhaps suggests that it's the mental ones that are going to be more problematic. The frozen river can also imply the blood which was there originally, if it was a battle wound. The rhyming couplets and the two-line stanzas that are used throughout this poem suggest a slow, painful, ordered, step-by-step process towards his recovery. It could also suggest that the poem itself, in its form, is fractured and broken, a bit like the soldier returning from war. Only then would he let me explore the blown hinge of his lower jaw, and handle and hold the damaged porcelain collarbone. So again, by exploring, by handling and holding, her approach is very, very gentle. There's the verbs that are used in these stanzas and also in the subsequent stanzas that suggest damage. So blown, implying a kind of explosion. And this is a methodical exploration of physical injuries. It's starting on his face, moving down his body, and kind of detailing every physical injury that he has received. Porcelain, this is about a type of very fine china, and so it's a metaphor that suggests how vulnerable human beings can be and the delicate nature of the human body. The repetition of the first line in stanza having two verbs, this continues throughout the poem, for example, handle and hold, suggests that the process for his recovery is ongoing, it's present and it's active. It seems to be happening now. Starting the stanza with and emphasises this effect. It's kind of and this and that. Suggests that she's always discovering new things about his new damaged, hurt body. And mind and attend, there's the two verbs again. The fractured rudder of the shoulder blade, and finger and thumb, the parachute silk of his punctured lung. So again, her approach is gentle, and the verbs continue to suggest violent damage. So punctured, fractured, violent verbs suggesting that the damage is severe. The parachute silk again emphasises how delicate the human body is, and also use parachutes in the military. If the parachute is punctured, it's useless and it's redundant. These two stanzas talk a little bit more about the mechanics of the body, and they link it to war machinery, so a rudder being a type of steering device and parachutes being used in combat in order to get the troops into the war zone. She's methodically moving down the body from the jaw to the lung. Only then could I bind the struts and climb the rungs of his broken ribs and feel the hurt of his grazed heart. So this metaphor used in the first stanza on this slide suggests a climb, and it suggests a kind of continual healing process going up. She's joining the hurt together, she's beginning to heal him, she's beginning to bind things back together again, and there is a very, very small sense of progress there. You've got the assonance in this stanza creating a soothing tone. So an assonance usually refers to vowel sounds being repeated, so bind and climb together. There's also consonance, which is where you've got the repeated consonant sounds in hurt and heart, but only the vowel sound has changed. And that emphasises the emotional pain he's experiencing, linking the hurt with the heart. The grazed heart itself is ambiguous, which means that it could be more than one meaning. It could be physical, it could be physically actually grazed with a bullet, or it could be emotional. And this changes the tone of the poem. This is the first indication that the wife is beginning to explore the emotional pain rather than just tracing and holding the physical injuries. Skirting along, only then could I picture the scam, the fetus of metal beneath his chest where the bullet had finally come to rest. So skirting along again suggests tenderness and a kind of brushing over very, very gently. Only then, in this instance, is no longer at the beginning of the stanza, perhaps suggesting that the wife is beginning to become more involved in the process. She's maybe moving on from just describing the physical injuries. Where it says picture the scan and the fetus, it's imagery of childbearing, and again it suggests vulnerability. And it's a juxtaposition between the violence of war and the innocence of babies and children and unborn humans. The fetus of metal as itself, it's an incongruous metaphor, which means that it doesn't seem to fit. If something is incongruous, it shouldn't be. It's very unusual. The bullet doesn't belong. And the fact that Armitage is using an unnatural image reinforces this. In addition, the fact that it's a fetus suggests the potential for the damage to grow. So like an unborn child in the womb, suggesting the potential for growth is there. And when it's a fetus of metal, symbolising emotional pain, that can be quite worrying, quite ominous. Final three stanzas now. I widened the search, tracing the scarring back to its source. So these problems aren't isolated, they're not localised, but they're widespread, more so than she believed at the beginning of the poem. The search alludes to the title. She's searching for the man she fell in love with and his pain, and that's referencing the Manhunt. And the scarring, its source and search, the sibilance of that repeated S sound creates a really sinister tone. The source is the root and the beginning of his problems, and this is what she's essentially searching for. Between this stanza and the next, there's the contrast between the past healed pain of the scarring, which is very obvious, and the current emotional trauma, which she's yet to discover, she's yet to find, she's yet to heal. So she's traced the scarring back to its source, to a sweating, unexploded mine, buried deep in his mind, And think about the wordplay between mine and mind is very interesting, around which every nerve in his body had tightened and closed. Then and only then did I come close. So the fact that the mine is unexploded, just like the metal fetus, suggests the potential for more serious damage. The emotional pain is more deadly and unresolved. The fact it's buried deep is suggesting that it's severe and very hard to reach. And the ending itself is ambiguous. Does she ever heal him? It suggests that all the other only thens that you received earlier, that you've read earlier in the poem, were irrelevant. This is a very, very slow process to get close to him at all. And does she ever eventually achieve it? She says she came close, but what did she come close to? So the poem does end on a very ambiguous note. The enjambment between these two stanzas, where the lines run over to the next, so for example, back to its source, two are sweating, around which every nerve in his body, suggests the pain continues and that the process of finding out what's wrong is active and keeps running on. It doesn't seem to be finished.